Welcome back to Greens Scenes, hosted by CGgolfs.
Today, we have, first of all, upgraded the sock situation. The last podcast that we did, I had holes in my socks, and then today I have nice, thick, warm, fluffy socks.
My father will be very, very impressed because he really doesn't like it when you wear odd socks. So you've upgraded your sock situation, and he will be very happy.
Maybe I need to go and put one. I have multiple different colours and I could mix them, which I might do just to annoy your father.
That's a really good idea.
Yeah. Anyways, into the golf. Today we are going to be discussing, this is kind of a topic that, first of all, I have a lot to say. I always give this like weird kind of answer when people ask me about it, and we get asked it a lot. Get asked it a lot in person, get asked it a lot on social media, on YouTube, da-da-da. And that question is,
have you ever thought about becoming a professional golfer? I think the short answer for me
no.
is yes.
Oh.
Is your answer no?
You're getting two perspectives on this podcast. I don't know. First of all, you've got to start by saying, you know, there are different levels to being a professional golfer. As soon as I meet somebody and they're like, what's your handicap? And I say, this started happening ever since I got to about 4 handicap, but now pretty much every single time that I say +2, so I was like, oh, are you going to go pro? Are you thinking about going pro? Have you ever thought about going pro? And you never know what they're meaning when they say that. I think when they say that, they're saying, have you ever thought about playing golf professionally? For me, on the LET, on the LPGA, you know, playing competitive tournament golf. Whereas there are actually a lot of different levels of being a pro. And I think that's maybe what you are referring to.
Yes. So I guess in my head, when I'm thinking about if I could ever potentially be a professional golfer, still ongoing, like still could be a reality depending on how my game shapes up in the future. We never rule it out. But
I've ruled it out.
There's so many different tiers of being a professional golfer. And like, I guess your initial tier would be your typical club professional. So getting your PGA qualification and becoming a professional at the game of golf by teaching it, by working at a golf course. And I think because I work at a golf course, people often ask me, do you want to become a professional? And I think that's the idea that they see a professional golfer as for me, in that I would go and I would get my PGA qualification and teach golf and then maybe play some tournaments on the side.
Okay, so starting off with that level of it then. So when it comes to being a coaching professional, I used to do a lot of teaching, a lot of tutoring, and I loved that. And I actually think that the type of coaching I would like to do is the type of coaching that the majority of coaches don't want to do. So actually, it could be quite a lucrative market if I sort myself out and do it. But I would really enjoy teaching beginners, teaching children, teaching people enjoyment around golf, getting into it. I don't think I would enjoy the super high level elite coaching, just because I know there's so much stress for the player that comes with that. I mean, our coach Andy, something that I've noticed recently, because he's had some of his students are starting to play tournaments. We haven't started yet, but he's not sending any golf advice. He's just sending like inspirational kind of like motivational things, and he was kind of saying that like when he was playing professional, that is what he needed from his coach. That is what he needed from somebody, was just like telling him it's going to be okay and you've put the work in and stuff. And I just think there's a lot of difficulty that would come in trying to coach elite athletes, and I think you'd probably enjoy that. Yeah,
I think my enjoyment in if I was to ever become a teaching professional would be twofold. I think firstly, working with juniors is something that I'm super passionate about. And actually, when I was younger, I did the Duke of Edinburgh Award, and I volunteered with my local Beaver group in like the Scouts. And actually, one of the sessions that we did with them was like a little golf circuit thing. And like, I was the only one that played golf, so I kind of led the thing and like taught these little kids how to play golf, and I really, really enjoyed it.
When you started saying that Beaver group, I was like, where is this going? Like, where's the relevance?
Not too big a tangent, that one.
I know what you mean. I think the majority of decent golfers who have gone through a lot of coaching have helped out with junior coaching. Like, I have quite a lot when I was younger, and I really enjoy it. Maybe between us, we could create the CGgolfs school of golf, where you take the elite performers and I take the beginners.
You take the ones that are just there for a little bit of a laugh.
Yeah, that would be perfect. That would be so much fun.
The CGgolfs Junior Academy. watch this space.
However, I think that when most people refer to this like, are you going to go pro? I don't think that's what they're meaning. I don't think they're meaning coaching. I think they're meaning, are you going to go and play professionally and live on tour, da-da-da-da. And I think for a start, there's a really big jump between amateur golf and professional golf. There's a lot that I could say about that and my thoughts on that. But I also think that people underestimate how hard it is to actually get to the pro level and get a card, get a spot. It's even harder, I would say, for the men, because you have, it's incredibly hard for the women. I'm not saying it's not, but you guys actually have more stages, don't you, to kind of get to the end goal. Whereas, say, for example, with the women, there's like 1 or 2 stages left.
Yeah, so I think with the men, the thing you're talking about is like the highest tier of professional golf. And like, I think that's important to focus on, because that's the 0.1% of the 0.1% that go pro will make it maybe to the European Tour or the PGA Tour. And there's so many stages. I think the final round of qualifying for the European Tour is like 7 rounds. So that's scary. And there's like 3 different stages before you actually get to those final 7 rounds.
So I think, the comparison there would be like LET Q school, where you have your kind of pre-qualifying, you have another qualifying, and then you have like the final. So I think that's what I'm referring to when I say there's like maybe 1 less stage, because you guys probably have a bigger field that are trying to go in it, so you've got to have more rounds to get that field smaller.
Yeah, and I think the important thing to look at when you're talking about like professional golf is there's so many different tours that you can play on. And like, in my mind, think that me and you could turn professional tomorrow and play on a tour, not a high level tour, but we could find a tour to play on and play events and maybe make some money. And like, there is a big jump when you start looking at the amateur golf towards the upper ends of pro golf. But actually, I think if we were to turn pro tomorrow, we could maybe find a spot on, say, there's the Scottish PGA Tour based in Scotland, or there's the Tartan Tour. Like, Tartan Tour is a bit of a, you know, those tours are, there's very, very good players on those tours, but I think we could go and we could make some cuts on there, because I think we are good enough players, and, you know, with some tournament experience this year in amateur events, I'm sure we could potentially try and get there.
I don't know. Here's my thought process, all right? And I actually think there is a reason that people can see your game. I'm guilty of this. I think everybody's guilty of this in golf. Someone will tell you they play off scratch, and then you'll see them have a bad round and you'll be like, that's sus. And I know that people look at my game and they'll be like, plus, are you sure? Are you sure? But there is a difference. There's 2 types of golfers that can get down to a plus handicap. And I think we're good examples of the 2 different types. And
I completely agree with that. Yeah, I know what you're going to say here.
Do you?
You have the consistency.
No.
No?
No. You said this before in the race to +4, right? You were like, yeah, I've got consistency, whereas you've got this like big jump. You haven't had like a 90 for a long time. I mean, I haven't had I don't know the last time I had a 90, but when we go out and we play casual golf, you will shoot a few under par, okay? I struggle to do that every so often when everything goes right, when the course is set up and it works for me, i.e. short par 5s. Well, not even necessarily short par 5s, because actually my distance is like a big benefit to me. But if the course is just kind of set out where it's par 5s that I can reach into that the majority of people can't, where there's par 4s that I can get close to the green or I can drive the green, par 3s that are on the longer side that I'm not hitting as long a club in as some people might be, then it's going to go my way. But I struggle to consistently shoot low scores under par. If I go to a parkland course, I'm going to struggle to shoot under par because my comfortability comes from links golf. If I go abroad, I'm going to struggle to shoot under par, whereas you can go abroad, you can shoot under. You go to a parkland course, you can shoot under. Yes, there's a little bit of a difference in our tournament scores, I would say, that your tournament scores can be quite volatile, more due to the mental side of it, whereas my tournament scores, they tend to be quite a little bit more consistent than they used to be. So my tournament scores, I might go 77, 78, 77. Do you know what I mean? Like really close.
Yeah.
Whereas you are more likely to go 67, 84 in a tournament.
Yes.
Maybe that's why you would.
I think that's where I see it, is like, I know in a tournament I could shoot a 64 and then either the next day or the next week shoot like a 75 or an 80, and like I do have big swings in between.
But I think that is primarily in your tournament rounds.
Yes.
Like your casual golf is more consistently good golf.
Yeah.
Whereas if you take my handicap record, for example, my handicap record, there'll be the ones under, which are my counting scores, but then I will have quite a few over.
Yeah.
And so my handicap could really easily go to about 3 or 4 if the next, I don't know, 10 rounds I put in are not my best rounds. Whereas I feel as though even with yours, when a good score comes off, it gets knocked off, it's usually replaced with not that big a difference.
Yeah. Yeah, that's true, actually.
And basically, this is going off on a bit of a weird tangent here, but my point was going to be that you could have 2+2 golfers. And if you look at one of their handicap records, they're shooting under par. The next day, yeah, it's weird. It is weird because actually, now that I think about it, my tournament golf is completely different to my casual golf. It is just a mental thing, and vice versa for you.
Yeah.
But you can have, maybe we're not exactly the perfect example, but it's okay. Just imagine 2+2 golfers. One of them is shooting under par every 2 to 3 to 4 rounds. They're gonna get a under par handicap. But you could have a +2 golfer that shoots 2 to 3 under every single round. They're still going to be +2. That golfer who consistently shoots under par, which is more what you are in my mind, that is a better golfer. That is a golfer who is more likely to make it on the tour. But then actually, I guess the other way to look at it is that some of my best scores are 5, 6 under.
Yeah.
And my worst scores are like 5, 6 over. And then your scores are just like always a couple under.
Yeah. So I have an interesting theory about this, in that on the tours, I would say you're better either coming top 10 or missing the cut. And so you do need a bit of variability, and you need to be able to like draw on good form and go really, really low. I feel like that's the keys to like successful professional golf. And that's why like I can almost see a potential with myself like playing tournament golf, because I do know that I can go 8, 9 under, but then equally I know that I can shoot like 10 over, and it's like I just need to separate those out a little bit and like follow up a 9 under with like a level or a 1 under or something like that, and not follow up with like a 10 over. And I think for tournament golf, variability is actually pretty good as long as you have the low end on that variability. If you're able to shoot under par.
See, I've talked myself out of this now, and now I have a slightly different opinion. I guess like maybe the volatility is actually kind of a good thing, but you wouldn't want to go in your first round and shoot 62 and then go 82 the next round. Yeah,
I think when we're speaking about volatility, it's maybe going 64, 70, 68, 70 in a 4-round tournament, and then the next week going 80, 75, missing the cut. And it's like having a bit of volatility there. I'm not saying consistency is bad for professional golf, but if you shoot level or 1 under in a pro event every round, unfortunately, you're not going to win anything, and you're not going to make an awful lot of money, I don't think.
And this is the problem as well, is that what do they call it? Like the border to entry.
Like barrier.
The barrier to entry is, it's really tough. Like it's a really high barrier.
Yeah.
It's kind of scary when you look at, say for the example, the LET access. I have friends that play in the LET access, people that I went to uni with that have gone and actually won LET events and things like that. So I keep my eye on it. I see the prize funds and stuff, and it is worrying. It's amazing that they have the LET access 100%, and there's not really anything they can do about this, which is fair. But the worrying thing comes when you look at the prize money for the people who are finishing 1, 2, 3 in the order of merit. They are not earning enough to even cover the fees of a full year on the LET Access Tour. And then when you go to the LET, obviously it improves a little bit. The prize fund does increase, but you have to be winning. You have to be finishing in the top 5, and it's a tough field. It's the type of field that I genuinely think if I went and played in that field, like, I would just be at the bottom, and I'm fine with that. I know that. I'm okay with it. But the idea of having to finish like in the top 5 in the LET depends on the event. Some of the events, the prize money is insane when it's like some of the bigger tournaments and like obviously the majors and stuff like that. But playing the LET and the LET Access, the money is pretty low, and even if you're finishing top 5 in the LET Access, you're still going to struggle.
Yeah, I think especially not so much on the European Tour for the men, and actually not so much now the Challenge Tour. I think it got a big injection of money this year, but if you go below that, the money really starts to either get concentrated into the top few, or there's not an awful lot of money there at all. And it's very difficult if you're on kind of one of these tours, and that's where the consistency comes in. If you're consistently finishing 20th, you're not going to cover your transport costs. Whereas if you're maybe finishing 2nd one week and then you miss the cut the next week, you're going to make more money than finishing 20th twice.
But let me tell you, finishing 20th is probably a score that I would be delighted with. And this is the thing.
Me too.
And it's yeah, I don't know. It's really tough. I mean, I won't mention who this is that I'm referring to, but I remember having a conversation with a girl that we know that's trying to play professional, and she was basically saying, you know, thing about the prize funds, you really need sponsors. Yeah, cool. And then she goes, I have no idea how to approach sponsors. I don't know what the conversation is. I've never had any training. And this girl has done a lot in the amateur world. You know, she's had some of the best coaching. She's been on amazing squads. And she was like, there is nothing out there that tells you how to go and approach brands, how to go and try and attain a sponsorship. And it's all well and good saying, oh, well, if you're good enough, a sponsor will come to you. It's a really competitive world out there. And now when you've got things like social media as well, and like influencers are taking a lot of sponsorship money, things like that, you know, it's really tough. And she was just like, I don't know what to do. I don't know how. Do I just blanket email all the brands and be like, hey, please give me money? Maybe, I don't know, but it was kind of a realization when I was speaking to her. She's one of the best golfers I know. She doesn't know how to approach brands for sponsorship. She's really struggling to get sponsorship. She's playing well, but it's not going to kind of fund the travel. And it's tough. I don't think I would be able to handle the financial stress.
I was going to say this. I think the one major negative, if I was looking at becoming a competitive professional golfer, would be the financial situation and the financial stress of not knowing where your next paycheck comes from, having to work with sponsors, which could be rewarding, but also very, very difficult in, as you say, a very competitive market. And I think that's the real harsh reality of being a professional golfer, is financial stress that you would be under, the uncertainty, especially on some of these smaller tours where the purses aren't as big, and like it's not all glitz and glamour like it might be on the PGA Tour, and it's very, very difficult, I would say.
And I mean, you know, whenever people ask me about it and they're like, oh, why wouldn't you want to play? I'll always give the reasoning. I'll be like, oh, if I stand over like a 4-foot putt and it's for a casual match, I'll get nervous. Like, never mind over a paycheck. It's not even that. It's like, imagine not even being in a tournament, sat at home, and you're thinking like, I don't know how I'm going to pay my bills. I don't know if I can do this. Am I allowed to go and spend money on that? Am I allowed to spend money on that? Do I need to take out a massive loan? Am I ever going to be able to repay it back? It's not just the pressure out on the golf course. I think it would be a huge, huge, huge mental strain. And I have mad respect for anybody that's trying to do it, because I know that that would be something that I would really, really struggle with. And I just think there's so much that goes into being professional that is so mentally taxing. Like, imagine spending so much time on something and getting potentially zero reward. There's no guarantee, especially in such a competitive field. You can't rely on everyone else messing up. You have got to be on your game.
Yeah.
And it's like we get frustrated at times, you know, making these videos and putting hours and hours into editing, and it's kind of like you see the followers and you see the nice comments and you're like, yeah, that makes it all worth it. But can you imagine if we were putting our time into training, we're out in the cold, we're putting everything on the line, you know, in that financial situation, hoping that you're going to make it. And the first few tournaments as well, you've got all of that in your mind. You're probably not going to do that well.
No, I think it's you've got to find a balance somewhere between trying to just get that out of your head when you're playing. I don't know how you do it because I've never played golf for money. I've only played for enjoyment and to try and win trophies from time to time, and that's literally it. But when you're thinking about trying to make a paycheck off of it, I can imagine there's some extra stress that's involved. And I think that's what I'm in awe most about professional golfers, is their ability to switch off that part of their brain. I mean, maybe they do think about it. Maybe there is some thoughts there, but their ability to switch that off and still play good golf, or if they're thinking about it and still play good golf, I think that's really, really impressive, because I know deep down myself, if I was in that position and I was teeing up on the first and I thought my rent is due next week, I've missed 3 cuts this month and I'm playing a difficult golf course and somebody in the morning wave has just shot 8 under. I need to shoot 8 under. Like, how am I doing that?
I think the conclusion is, if you are at a golf club and there's anybody who, you know, a lot of golf clubs have like attached pros, or you might know somebody that was at the club that is trying to make it professional. If you do know someone that's trying to make it professional, just maybe take them out for a coffee. Like, make sure they're doing okay. Give them, you know,
Give them
time.
a pat on the back.
Yeah, just go make sure they're all right and try and, you know, give them someone to chat to and buy them a coffee, buy them lunch. Just give them a hug, because I think they probably need it.
Yeah, I think having had this conversation, I'm feeling very relaxed about us playing amateur golf, because when you talk about all the pressures here, amateur golf, we're just doing it for fun.
We're literally just doing it for fun. And like this was kind of where I thought we would kind of come on to and maybe finish the conversation up a little bit, is, you know, obviously we've kind of said this, you know, if I had all the money in the world, right? Brilliant. If I had all the money in the world. If money was not an issue and I could just go and do Q School as many times as it would take, and I'm pretty sure it would take a lot of times, to get a card to go on the LET, and I did not have to worry about money, but I was just able to go and play cool golf courses in the sun, like a nice little bit of competitive golf, and it did not matter. Yes, I would love that, obviously. If I could just go and play golf forever, great. But the fact of, if you're playing it professional, that being your sole income, that to me is just not an enjoyable experience. I don't think it would be enjoyable. However, we are, I guess, almost privileged that we're not in that situation and we have an income that is not reliant on golf performance. And for me, that is something that I need to feel very stable financially and mentally, is that I have an income that is not based on my golf performance. For us, we get to go and play amateur events and enjoy that. Obviously, we're looking at playing in a little schedule. This year, we've got various different types of events, from kind of like a couple-day small weekend events to like English amateur, Scottish amateur, things like that we're going to be trying to play in. How far do you think you would go in terms of, like, what would you want to try and get into as an amateur? Would you ever do open qualifying? Would you ever even go to Q School? Like, I always thought there was kind of part of me that just wanted to go to Q School as an amateur with no intention of ever playing professionally, just because I wanted to see what it was like. I wanted to see how my game fared up. Obviously, it cost multiple thousands of pounds, so I'm not going to be able to do that. But in an ideal world, that would have been something that's really cool to do. Like, where does that kind of go for you?
Yeah, so I think in terms of what potential professional events that I could play in the future, I think like open qualifying would definitely be one that would be quite attainable because I know that I would get into that straight away.
But you haven't done that before,
I haven't, no.
Why?
Why haven't I done it before? Probably confidence. Like, I also think that my game in the past, I know that I don't have what it takes to tee up in the Open yet. But I'm hoping that at some point, maybe in the next few years, I'll stand up and I'll think, you know what? Why don't I give it a go?
Well, this was my thing, was that everybody was asking me, because the AIG was in St Andrews, everyone was asking me, oh, are you going to go and play Open qualifying? Because initial qualifying was somewhere down in London, and then second stage of qualifying was at Crail, just down the road from here. And everyone was like, oh, why don't you give it a go? I was like, well, what happens if I shoot the lights out in pre-qualifying and qualifying, and then I end up in the blooming AIG and I have to go and play and shoot 102 on the old course because I'm absolutely like unable to play for the nerves. Like, why? Do you know what I mean? Like,
that is almost the same as me. Like, I feel like I could go to Open qualifying and like potentially shoot like a really good score, and then it's like you get to
you don't want that to happen.
I know I would just be ridiculously nervous and I just embarrass myself. Like, I know that for sure. So I think some of the other pro events that I would maybe want to try is, I do like the idea of trying to play in one of the Tartan Tour events potentially in the future. I know a lot of the guys that play on that, and I think they're incredible golfers, and I think I would hope that me on my best day, I could potentially kind of compete with that, and it would be really nice to try it at some point. I know that the barrier to entry for those, I think I would need to try and get like a invite or like an amateur invite or something like that. So that might be something that I try to do in the future, because I know there's a few courses that are on their rota that I really like the look of, and it's like, when you know you like the look of a course, I think that gives you quite a lot of confidence to go and play well.
Yeah, and I mean, you know, it's we both like the competitive side of golf within kind of a nice little confine of, if you play badly, it's fine. And obviously, you know, if you're playing those events as an amateur, that's all well and good. But as soon as it becomes like more than that, I think that's where I struggle.
Yeah.
Do you think, final closing thought then,
okay,
I wholeheartedly, like in my whole of my heart, I know that I could start shooting 65s if I really, really worked on my golf and I got absolutely mint at golf and I'm shooting 65 every single round, and I, you know, toddle off and I play some events and I'm playing well, and I get to a stage where I could qualify to play professional golf. I am incredibly sure, unless something changed rapidly, that I mentally just couldn't handle professional golf. And I know it would kill my enjoyment for the game. Even if I felt as though my game was there, I need to protect my enjoyment for golf, because I've lost my enjoyment for golf so many times, and I've given up golf through hatred of it. And I never want that to happen again. Do you feel as though if you got to a point where you were like, oh, I have a handicap of +8 and I never score more than a 70, I don't know, like you get to a point where you're just like, yeah, I'm absolutely mint, and you are at the level to play on that. Obviously that would require a lot of work. What would you do in that situation? Because I wouldn't go for it.
Personally, the only way that I would turn professional to pursue playing tournament golf would be if I started seeing some really, really positive results in big amateur events. I'm playing some of the smaller ones this year with some big ones scattered in there. But if I started to see really good results in things like the British Amateur, I would probably want to play in the US Amateur if I was thinking about becoming a competitive professional. Like, I know myself that I am so ambitious, and I would want to be the best in anything that I did. And if I wasn't going to do that, and if I knew deep down that I wasn't going to be the best, then I would probably not pursue a professional golf career.
Yeah, I think I would actually sooner say, yes, this is for me, if I was shooting like 70s, but loving playing in front of a crowd, loving having the pressure. Because I think if your natural instinct is to thrive in those conditions, you can train yourself to play better golf in those conditions. But
it's building the enjoyment first of all in tournament golf, which I think we both need to do. We both need to get rid of the anxiety of tournament golf. build enjoyment for it. And then I think you can work on bringing your A game into tournament golf. And I think that's what we'll try and do this year. And then I feel like we can go from there.
Yeah. We'll be sharing a lot as well on like tournament golf, which I'm a little bit nervous for. I'm nervous and I'm excited, but this is my year of getting back into tournament golf. I took a couple years off through lack of enjoyment, and the goal is enjoyment. We're going to be keeping you updated with how that is. The scores aren't the biggest thing for me, like how I am finding it, if I'm enjoying it or not, that's the big thing. So if you want to hear more about that, make sure you are following along, whether that is on YouTube, on Apple Podcasts, on Spotify. Make sure you're following along and you'll get lots and lots more from us. And yeah, go give a aspiring professional a hug.
Yeah, I think most of them need it. I think it's a very tough job, probably one of the tougher ones in the golfing world. And I think everyone that does it, I have massive respect for.
So much respect. Like, you are, if you're in that boat, even if you feel as though you're struggling, like, you are achieving something that I could never in my wildest dreams even dare to try and do.
And it's that every single child that plays golf to like a decent level, that's their aspiration. Like, you are living their dream if you're a professional golfer. So. And
if you are a professional golfer and you haven't been given a hug, come and find us. We'll give you a hug. We'll buy you a coffee. Thank you guys for listening. Make sure that you are following along, and we will see you or hear you or be
present with you in the next episode.